What's up, everybody? Welcome to the StormCast, the world's best podcast. We're live on YouTube and Twitter, bringing you the best podcast in the world. Before we get into today's episode, I need to give a quick sound check because we do it live. What's up, everybody? And we sound amazing. All right, let's jump right into it. This will possibly be one of my best podcasts yet, considering the amount of research and thought that went into today's preparation. Make sure you check out episode 58 if you haven't already. We talked all about teachers going wild, the child slavery case in West Virginia, the excavator rage episode that one husband had on his wife, and we talked all about the new NASA photos of Mars and other planets that were recently released. All right. So if you haven't already, go check that out after you watch this episode, of course, because today's episode is going to be, like I said, one of my best as I put a lot of time and effort into all of the research in the cases that we're going to be talking about today. All right. Before we get into that, though, let me give you a quick recovery update. Lately, I've been extremely locked in. I've been cutting out all distractions, focusing on boxing for my cardio, trying to get my cardio up. Been doing a lot of lifting, a lot of free weights, and kettlebells as well. Been eating a lot of protein, making sure I'm getting a lot of calories in. No calorie limit for me, eating as much as I can, trying to put on as much muscle and mass as possible, as well as taking my creatine, my glutamine, my beta alanine, my collagen, all in a mixture after my workouts. Make sure I'm getting all of my nutrients and supplements in as well. I also take vitamin D. I take a probiotic and a fish oil as well. So that helps out with all of the digestion and everything related to that. Been consistent on my diet though, as I said, putting in a lot of calories and protein. And I don't know if you can tell, but I've been gaining weight. All right. I can notice it's noticeable for others as well. They say I've been putting on weight, getting bigger. And I'm also trying to get back strong, trying to get stronger like I was pre-injury. All right. Before my injury, I was a state champion power lifter. All right. Got third in the state in my weight class. For my weight class to 155 right before I was injured. And so I'm just trying to get back strong again. Trying to feel like a state champion again. All right. So I've been lately, I've been thinking about cutting my hair. And the only reason for that is because, well, it's getting ridiculously hot outside. Okay. Right now, it is currently 100 degrees. And with a spinal cord injury, as many of you know, with a spinal cord injury out there, you don't sweat. All right. And it's getting extremely hot out, and the hair only makes it hotter. Right. So, y'all let me know. Should I cut it or is it looking good? Is this the swag? I'm getting older. I'm thinking about getting more of that buzz cut back and growing it out a little bit, getting a little bit of a like a nappy throwback, but keeping it low and keeping it classy and grown, entering my grown man era, right? So how has everyone's week been? Since the last episode, I recently watched The Mandalorian. I went to the movie theater and saw that with some friends, and well, I give it a 5.8 out of 10. Okay, I didn't do a movie review on that. It was okay. It could have been more action. And since the last time I saw you guys, I also went and saw The Backrooms. I saw that with my pops, actually. And we did a movie review on it. Okay, so that movie review dropped actually yesterday. All right, so it is live on the YouTube channel on Stormy and Friends. You can go check that out now. We did a really detailed review, and I'll let you guys go and check that out and see what my rating was for that on that video. So make sure you watch the whole video because there's a bonus review at the end of the review. And I want you to also drop your comments in the comment section of that video if you've seen the Backrooms movie. All right. So let's now get into our StormCast sports update. All right. So the NFL Finals, or NBA Finals rather. All right. The NBA Finals are on the verge of ending with the New York Knicks leading the San Antonio Spurs 3-1 in the series so far. The Knicks are 1 win away from their first NBA championship since 1973, after coming back from a massive deficit in Game 4 to beat the Spurs 107-106. San Antonio had cut it to 2-1 after winning Game 3, but New York responded with one of their biggest wins in decades. The series now heads to San Antonio for Game 5, where the Spurs face elimination. And look, my prediction, don't be surprised if the Spurs win the next 3 and take the championship. I think the NBA is going to let this series play out as long as possible. More games means more money, and we all know how that works. We are now entering the World Cup. Let's give a World Cup update. The FIFA World Cup, the biggest in history, features 48 teams and is now well underway. Mexico opened the tournament at the Azteca in Mexico City, defeating South Africa 2-0. Then the U.S. came out yesterday and absolutely demolished Paraguay 4-1 at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. That's USA's first multi-goal World Cup win in 24 years. Canada tied with Bosnia, and South Korea beat the Czech Republic 2-1. And today, we've got Brazil versus Morocco, Scotland versus Haiti, and Qatar versus Switzerland, all in action. The final is set for July 19th at MetLife Stadium. Tomorrow night, we've got UFC Freedom 250, the White House card, taking place on the South Lawn of the White House, a stacked card, but here are my predictions. Sean O'Malley, one of my favorite fighters, is my favorite against Ayman Zahabi, rather. At bantamweight, they will be fighting at bantamweight. I've got O'Malley winning that one by KO in the second round. We've also got Alex Pereira makes his heavyweight debut against Cyril Gane for the interim heavyweight title. And a win would make him the first 3-division champion in UFC history. No fighter in UFC history has ever won a championship in 3 different weight classes. I've got Pereira getting that done. The man is built different. And in the main event for tomorrow, Ilia Topuria defends his lightweight title against Justin Gaethje. That one is going to be a dogfight. Gaethje comes to scrap every single time. But I've got Topuria winning by decision, if not by submission. He's undefeated for a reason. All right. So we've got a Henry Ruggs update as well. Remember Henry Ruggs? He was a first-round NFL draft pick and one of the fastest wide receivers in the league for my Las Vegas Raiders until November 2nd, 2021, when he got behind the wheel drunk with a blood alcohol level of 0.16, twice the legal limit. And he drove 156 miles per hour straight into a 23-year-old Tina Tinter's car, killing her and her dog. He pleaded guilty to felony DUI causing death and was sentenced in 2023 to 3 to 10 years in prison. Fast forward to May 26th last month. Ruggs appeared before the Nevada Parole Board, expressed remorse, and made his case for early release. His former teammate Josh Jacobs even confirmed he had been training in prison, hoping for an NFL comeback. But it wasn't enough. The parole board denied his request, and he won't be getting out until his mandatory release date in August 2027. Cooked. All right. So now let's shift gears a bit. And just a heads up, today's episode is going to be a bit more crime and law focused, okay? A lot of cases going on around the country, and a lot of them being controversial at that. But I want to break it down in the right way, all right? So this is the StormCast news report. Let's get into it. Let's start with the Karmelo Anthony case. And I'm going to give a little bit of a disclaimer here. I do not stand with violence of any sort, all right? Especially violence that is not, life-threatening defense-wise, and, not threatening your life. No lives should be lost for any circumstance, especially if your life is not on the line. And since this case is so controversial, let's get into who I am before I give my opinion. Right? So, I'm not your typical black guy. Right? I'm multicultural. And with that being said, I don't support, I'm multi-traveled, I'm multicultural, and I don't support Black Lives Matter, nor think Black Lives Matter is a real organization meant to actually support Black lives. All right. I'm not one of your pro-blacks. Just because you're black doesn't mean I consider you my tribe or automatically have your back. That kind of thinking is ignorant and honestly racist in its own way. I was raised to think rationally, make judgments based on facts and not emotions, and judge people and situations for what they really are. I'm a military brat, born in Missouri. Then I moved to Hawaii, then South Carolina, and then to Texas, and back and forth from South Carolina and Texas multiple times. The only reason I'm still here in South Carolina now is because of my support system. Honestly, I'm black and I'm white. My grandma is Austrian. And let me show you here that I am not lying. All right. So here we have, wrong tab, folks. Wrong tab. Let me pull up some of my background for you guys before I give my opinion on this, so you kind of understand a little bit of where I'm coming from. All right, so here we have me and my grandma. This picture was taken in 2015, 2014, December of 2014, around New Year's. All right, we traveled up to New York City to go. Oh, what happened? I think. All right, we traveled to New York City, right, to see the ball drop. All right, so there you have me and my grandma. She is Austrian. She was born in Austria, raised in Austria most of her life, and then before moving, obviously, here to the United States as an immigrant. And she spent the first couple years of her life actually fleeing from the Nazis, right? Hiding in a basement in Austria during German occupation, right? As you know, the most famous, Nazi there is Adolf Hitler, right? He is also Austrian, which means that we share the same. What can you say? We share the same, not maybe perhaps lineage, but I have Austrian blood, and he also has Austrian blood in him, and well, that's partly where I believe some of my charisma comes from, right? So I grew up in College Station, Texas, for most of my life, which is about 67% white, 18% Hispanic, 9% Asian, and 9% Black. My best friends growing up um, were a white kid named Timmy and a Latino kid named Jaron. My first kiss was a white girl named Haley, and my first love was a white girl named Courtney. So, as you can gather, I was raised around majority white kids and white families and whatnot in Texas, right? My mom is retired military. My dad is retired military and police, among other things. I was not raised to be a victim of my skin color or circumstances. I was raised to overcome. I am black, and I was injured with a spinal cord injury in 2015 at the age of 15. I'm now in a wheelchair, balancing recovery, bills, adulting, and everything that comes with that. Right? So I'm an adult. I'm just like, the average American out there, you can say. I get up, I handle what I need to handle, I take care of my bills and my house, and I go on about my business. All right. So, balancing recovery, bills, adulting, and everything that comes with that with the spinal cord injury, you would think is a task. And I must admit, it's not the easiest thing in the world, right? I never expected this life. I never expected to be in a wheelchair at the age of 27. But here I am, and I'm not going to complain. I'm going to take the punches and roll with them, as is life. I moved out on my own at 25 and paid off a house in what is a nice neighborhood. I consider it a nice neighborhood. If you want to check for yourself, you can go and check the house tour video that I did on my YouTube on Stormy and Friends. That video is there. I believe it's titled Buying a House at 25 as a Quadriplegic. Go and check it out. Both of my next door neighbors are older white women. The one to my right is a 91-year-old lady, and she lives with her daughter, who is very old as well, I believe, in her 70s. All right, her 60s or 70s. The neighbor on my left is also very old. I believe she's in her 70s, right? And I'm very cool with them. We get along well every time I see them. We speak. My neighbor here on the left, Joy, she brings me cookies and brownies and desserts and cakes and all type of stuff. Great relationship. Recently, her birthday passed. I bought her some organic local honey, right? And she loved it, texting me pictures with it. And she's always, speaking, reaching out to me. So I have a great relationship with my neighbors. My neighborhood is predominantly white families, and I've maybe seen 2 or 3 black people here in the last 3 years. My neighbors wave at me on my walks around the neighborhood, and I wave back. We've got community book exchange boxes throughout the neighborhood, and sometimes I'll drop a book in there, and sometimes I'll take a book and read it, and exchange a book. It's peaceful and respectful here where I live. I also played sports, ran track for an outside. I ran track at school for the school and also outside of school for summer track and competitive track. I was a Well, I am a national track athlete, right? We got fourth in the nation for our age in 2015. All right. So as you can tell, a lot of things changed for me. A lot of things happened for me in 2015. As well as track, being a national champion in track. I played basketball growing up and football from the age of around what grade is third grade? Four. So around 7, 8 years old, I was playing tackle football, community tackle football league, right? And eventually all the way up until high school when I was injured my junior year. All right. I had a promising future in football. Schools looking and reaching out to me. Um, uh, star athlete, you could say. I have my highlights on Huddle. If you just search my name on Huddle, Mark Mickens Huddle, you'll find all my highlights there. All right. And I also coached. All right. So I've learned to work with people of every racial, religious, and ethnic background. I don't see color, I see character. And I don't have a victim mindset. If racism ever came my way, it would reflect right off of me because I know my worth. All right. At this point, I treat people like I treat white people like they're black people, right? Um, I feel like I'm better than them, you know, and most times I am, simply put. So why am I bringing all of this up? I've seen a lot of people online take the black community side in criminal cases solely because it's white on black violence. And I refuse to do that because I know if it were black on black violence, nobody would care. And it wouldn't even be a headline. And we all know that's true. So when I'm breaking these cases down here in a minute, know that I'm sticking strictly to facts, rationality, and what's wrong versus what is right. I refuse to follow or feed into what I call the slave mentality, the perpetual victim mindset that holds the black community back. With that being said, let's get into the Karmelo Anthony case breakdown. This incident took place at Kuykendall Stadium in Frisco, Texas, during a high school track meet under a team tent in the bleacher area during a rain delay. All right, so now we're going to pull up some witness accounts and get a little bit of a feel for exactly what went on, surrounding this case and what the witnesses witnessed and saw and reported. All right, so here we have witnesses say Karmelo was invited into the tent, and later Austin and Hunter asked him to leave 15 times. At least 10 or more witnesses say Karmelo then got aggressive. Okay. So let's get into some of the witnesses' accounts here. We have witnesses say Karmelo was invited into the tent, and later Austin and Hunter, twin brothers, Austin, the one being the one who was unalived by Karmelo Anthony. The twin brothers asked him to leave at least 15 times, all right? During the Karmelo Anthony murder trial, testimony painted a picture of shifting dynamics inside the Memorial High School team tent at a Frisco track meet where roughly 20 students were gathered to escape the rain. A defense witness stated that another student invited Karmelo into the tent where he sat and chatted amicably with others for about 5 minutes in a peaceful atmosphere. Right? However, Hunter Metcalf was the first to confront him, asking who he was and telling him to leave. Karmelo responded by saying, "No one has a problem with me being here besides you." Austin and Hunter Metcalf soon began repeatedly asking him to leave. Hunter Metcalf soon began repeatedly asking him to leave, reportedly as many as 15 times. Before the situation escalated, despite the initial calm period, at least 10 or more prosecution witnesses, out of the state's total of 21 witnesses, described Karmelo as the primary aggressor who refused to depart and ultimately escalated the confrontation, leading to the fatal stabbing of Austin Metcalf. The defense continues pushing self-defense while prosecutors argue it was an unprovoked murder. All right, so I'm going to do my best to give you guys both sides without any bias. All right.
There was a lot that happened today, and they heard from one of the students that was under that memorial tent that was both friends with Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony. One of the most anticipated witnesses was that student who knew both Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. He testified that tensions escalated after Anthony was asked to leave the memorial team tent. He told jurors Anthony became angry, challenged Austin to move him, and appeared to be provoking a confrontation before Austin put his hands on him. He described Austin falling backwards, lifting his shirt, and yelling that he'd been stabbed. He also said he and Karmelo Anthony were not good friends. But on cross-examination, the jury was shown photos of the two together at parties, social gatherings, and at a track meet weeks before the stabbing. This was in an effort to show that they were much closer than the witness acknowledged. And then when asked why he didn't intervene, he said he really didn't know, and why he didn't tell his teammates that he knew Anthony to calm everyone down. There was a lot that happened today.
We have some of the witness testimony and some of the what led up to the unaliving of Hunter Metcalf. All right, some of the confrontation. So here we have the last defense witnesses before Judge adjourn for the day. 17-year-old male goes to Memorial High School. Defense: it was raining hard enough for people to be under tents. Witness: yes. Defense: I want to talk about Melo coming to the tent. All right, Karmelo Anthony. It was clear Eddie knew Melo. Witness: yes. Defense: from Melo entering the tent and interacting with Eddie, it was clear that they knew each other. Witness: yes. Defense: Eddie called Karmelo over to the tent. Witness: yes, sir. Defense: the interaction between Eddie and Melo was friendly. Witness: yes, sir. Defense: after Eddie called him over, Melo sat down. Witness: yes. Defense: for 5 minutes, friendly talk. No one expressed a problem with Melo being there. Witness: no. Okay. Defense: do you call the first person to say, Melo, who are you? Witness: Hunter Metcalf. Defense: Hunter is a big guy. Witness: you could say. Defense: at the time of the event, Austin was a little bigger. Defense: at the time of the event, Austin was a little bigger. Witness: I'd say substantially bigger. Defense: I believe you told the detective Hunter didn't tolerate being disrespected. Witness: yes. Defense: so Hunter tells Melo to leave. Witness: yes. Defense: Melo said, no one has a problem with me being here besides you. Witness: yes. Defense: at some point, Austin and Hunter stand up. They had been seated. Witness: yes. Defense: if you put Melo and Austin next to each other, Melo is smaller. Witness: yes. All right, so we're gathering. Hunter is substantially bigger. As we know, they're both football players, Hunter and Karmelo Anthony, but Hunter being a much larger guy, more of a linebacker type build, right? And you could say Melo being more of a wide receiver or athletic, like a corner type build, right? Skinnier, more lanky, athletic type build. Defense: Hunter started with a moderate tone and it got more aggressive. Witness, yes, sir. Defense, do you remember telling the detective you need to move before I beat your ass? Witness, I don't recall saying that. Defense approaches the witness with papers. Witness agrees. Agrees Austin said something like that or similar to that of wanting to beat his ass. Defense, Austin is standing up. Melo is still seated. Witness, yes. Defense, that's when Melo reached in his bag after Austin mentioned something about wanting to beat his ass. Witness, yes. Defense, all right, so now we have Austin reaching into his bag. Presumably what we would think would be for the weapon, the knife that we know was used to unalive Austin. Defense, Austin calls his bluff and says, I know you don't have anything in that bag. Witness, yes. Defense, for Austin to make his way to Melo, he has to move up 5 rows. Witness, yes. Defense, Austin takes a step or two, and then they talk, and that continues. Witness, yes. Defense, Melo says, as long as you don't touch me, we're cool. Or don't touch me. Witness, yes. All right, so here we have Melo, basically telling the guy, hey, as long as you don't bother me, you don't touch me, there won't be no problems, right? Defense, you told the detective Austin reaches up and taps Karmelo on the shoulder. Melo is still seated. Witness, yes. Defense, there's a touch and then there's a grab. Witness, yes. Defense, he, being Austin, grabbed with both hands. Witness, both of his hands were in motion. Defense, Austin is reaching for Melo, and at that point, Melo's hand comes out of the bag. All right, so here we have it beginning to escalate and becoming more of an aggressive encounter. All right, so witness says yes. They're now taking a 12-minute break as of 4:54 p.m. Sometimes at track meets there's breaks, intermissions, and things like that for events or whatever the case may be. And as we know, it was raining at this event, so it could have also been a rain delay. Witness says he called 911. The prosecutor asked witness to show stabbing motion. Prosecutor, who was in the wrong and who was in the right? Witness, I think Karmelo was in the wrong. Prosecutor, Karmelo Anthony provoked this. Witness, yes. All right, so folks, that is big. When the witness says, I think Karmelo was in the wrong, that basically states that I believe Karmelo could have de-escalated the situation, and it did not. He could have, possibly just left or, got away from that team that wasn't his team, as we know, and got from under that tent. Okay. So now let's talk a bit about the weapon that was used. So here is the knife used by Karmelo Anthony to stab Austin Metcalf. It was only a $13 blade with a flashlight from Walmart, right? So the weapon used to end Austin Metcalf was only a cheap folding knife, $13 to be exact, equipped with a flashlight. It is alarming that a lethal, unregulated tool can be purchased so easily and carried into a crowded venue, yes. But the sheer accessibility of these inexpensive blades proves that acquiring a deadly weapon requires almost no effort. Yes, it's easy to get a pocket knife. It's easy. You would call this a pocket knife, really a hunting knife, right? So here we have some more of the pictures. You can see it. It's being sold out of stock. I guess it's got a lot of publicity. People realizing that this thing can actually kill someone, right? Which I have some more questions I'll bring up here in a little bit. But so folks, this weapon, this pocket knife, here's my take on the weapon and what went down. All right, so as I was a Boy Scout, right, in Texas, actually, for several years. And I carried a pocket knife everywhere I went. It's completely legal, right? But during my fights, and I had many growing up, I never pulled out my knife or any weapon against the person I was fighting. I especially didn't bring my knife to school or any school sporting event. My dad always told me that carrying a weapon only attracts problems because then you have to use it. All right. And I ran track. I've been to countless track meets. There's an unspoken rule. You don't go under an opponent's tent. There's an inherent tension and rivalry automatically at these track meets between teams. This whole situation feels like someone who was scared to fight one-on-one. Simply put, what happened to taking your one-on-one like a man and moving on after? That's what we used to do. We used to fight, then give each other our GGs, and we'd be, cool the next day, right? Only respect. I fought you as a man, you fought me as a man, let's move on. But this altercation has all the signs of being premeditated, if you ask me. All right. Why would he bring this to the track meet in the first place, unless he was scared for his life, or he possibly, felt that he could possibly antagonize someone to the point where he would have to use it. All right. So, how would I feel if this were my brother? As you know, I have an older brother. Shout out to Marcel. We've done a podcast. Go check that episode out. We've also made multiple videos. You've seen them in a lot of my movie reviews, possibly. We're very close, right? I would say we have a close relationship. We love each other. I love my brother. A brother's love is stronger than a brother's bond is stronger than any other bond I can think of, right? So how would I feel if this were my brother, right? Hunter and Austin were twins. That's even more close than a lot of siblings. Being identical. Having the same face, having the same body build, having the same possible thoughts at times. Being indistinguishable from each other. Looking in the mirror and seeing your brother, right? And I think about it, I believe that Austin and Hunter was also there when Austin was unalived, and he was the person who held him as he bled out and took his last breath. Like something out of a movie, and I can't even put that into words. The feeling that I would have if that was me in that circumstance, right? Another question I have is, how did this knife, even unalive, how did he get this all the way through the chest of Austin and kill him? Right, that takes a lot of effort and force and strength to unalive someone, to get it through that chest plate and into the heart. So how did this $13 knife achieve that? It beats me, but it happened. All right. So I think my dad is actually here. Hey, Pops. Live right now talking about this Austin and Hunter Metcalf case.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Did you hear about that?
Oh, Karmelo Anthony?
Yeah.
Or none of the jurors was all the jurors were white.
Apparently. Well, there was some Muslim and some Asian, apparently, but yeah, it didn't represent the community.
Right. Yep. Cause you remember that time when I was a juror?
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah. Were there other races?
Yeah.
Mixed in.
Yeah.
So from that alone, you knew Karmelo was screwed, right?
He gonna do some time. Yeah. He knew that going into it. Yeah, man. He was in something, man, and we was in something against some last minute shit for that fourth, and shit, we stopped to get a steak.
Okay.
And
Someone's at the front door.
There you go. That's me. It's alerting me that you're here a little bit too late. You know.
Oh really?
If you were a robber, I'd be shit out of luck, right?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So yeah, me and we went back to the Carl house too. Just since we was down there.
Something.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
Hey, chat. We got some steak. Shout out to Pops making a W appearance. Let's go. It's a T-bone or is that
a strip? It's a strip. Yeah.
Strip? Okay.
Yeah. Then your
broccoli.
Yeah. Where you want me to put it at?
Kitchen table.
Okay.
Shout out to Pops coming through. Looks like I don't have to make no food today.
Hey man, I got T-bone in the car.
All right.
I'm fixing to head back.
All right.
I'll be at the house. If you need anything, I'll be at the house the rest of the day.
All right. Cool.
All right, man.
All right. W Pops in the chat, y'all.
Go.
Let's go.
All right, man.
Speaking of that, did you like the movie review?
Okay, huh?
Did you watch the movie review?
No.
Yeah.
I just got it. I'm watching.
Yeah, go check it out.
All right. All right, man.
All right, Pop. All right, W Pops in the freaking chat, y'all. We got food on a good food too. Steak, fries, broccoli. Can't go wrong with that. So yeah, W Pops. Let's continue where we left off. All right. So as we were speaking, how would I feel if this were my brother and had to watch him bleed out in my arms? Folks, I would be furious, right? I would want revenge. Simply put, I would want the worst for Karmelo Anthony in this case. If that were me, right? If that were me. And I'm sure many of you can feel that sentiment as well. So here we have some of Austin, the twin brother of Hunter, some of his impact statements in the courtroom. All right, so after Karmelo Anthony received his 35-year prison sentence, the Metcalf family, including Austin's brother, provided emotional impact statements to the courtroom. Austin's twin brother to Anthony: "You took everything from me." Uh-oh. So Hunter Metcalf's impact statement: "You took a son, a brother, a friend, my best friend from this world. You took someone away from me who was supposed to be an uncle to my kids. Now I want everything taken from you. You let the devil take over in that moment. You're a very shallow man for what you did. You took everything from me. Eventually, your name will be forgotten, but my brother's memory will live on." All right. So as you hear, we have a very angry brother, right? And rightfully so. I would think that that's most of us if in this situation. So now let's get into the father's response, right? We'll just be talking about the father and the mother's response in this case, and a little bit of the community response as well later on. So here is the father's response. All right. So Austin Metcalf's father's grief filled the courtroom. So here is some of his emotional impact statements, and I don't even really know why they give. I mean, I understand you want to get off your chest your final words to the perpetrator of the crime. If you have some feelings towards them, but what does this really do in the, in terms of the case? Whatever, they do it. So Hunter's the father, Jeff Metcalf, the father to Austin. Here is his impact statement. "From the first day he grabbed my finger, he had my heart with it. Watching him grow up through the years went way too fast. The saddest part is we don't get to see you achieve all your goals. We were robbed." All right. Austin's death destroyed the person I used to be. My son's death didn't just break my heart, it broke my nervous system. And as a person with a spinal cord injury, I can tell you that having your nervous system impacted it's devastating to your body, right? You lose sensation, you lose feeling, you lose control of bodily autonomy, and so much more. All right. So obviously, this is just, a comparison, but I can give a little bit of my 2 cents in there for what he might be feeling. All right. It's not a good feeling. You feel numb. All right. You numb. He also says, a piece of me died with my son, but I'm still expected to keep living. People think grief is sadness. It's not. It's rage. Pure, unfiltered rage. And we'll go into a little bit more of his rage here in a second. All right. So Jeff tells Karmelo Anthony to look down as he called him despicable. You failed your parents. You failed yourself, and you failed society. You don't belong in this community. You can't even look me in the eye right now, but you can stab my fucking son in the heart. Excuse my language. I'm just reading the impact statement, folks. The public's response sickens me. This was never about race. Please don't make it about race. It's about right and wrong. I agree. It should be about right and wrong, not race. I said that. I said that earlier. He goes on to say, your consequence is accountability. You will face those consequences starting today. He then ends with, when people want to tear down my son's memory, I have to be quiet. They weren't bullies. They weren't racist. They understood respect, but still people continue to harass our family. It made me realize how cruel people can be. And that's another thing, folks, the sickening reaction I see on social media. I saw something, I don't know if it was true or AI, but I saw someone pissing on Austin's grave. I think that's absolutely despicable. You don't do that to a dead man, right? Once a person's dead, you let them rest in peace, not piss, right? And so that is absolutely sickening to see. And he also says, he realizes how cruel people can be. So the reaction, the community, especially those supporting Karmelo, most of them being part of the Black community, they, probably harassed the family, called them, showed up to their house, you know how people are when they feel emotional about a situation. And so that probably further led, added some hatred in the heart of Jeff, the father, and the family, who, if they weren't racist before this, they definitely probably are now, right? That's safe to say. All right, so we have some more of Jeff Metcalf, the father's response. We have some more of his response to this situation here. So let's reload this and give it some volume. All right. So, and actually, before we do that, folks, let's take a quick ad break here to shout out my Instagram. If you haven't already followed me on Instagram, what are you doing? All right. What are you doing? I will always update you whenever I'm going to go live for the StormCast, as well as other updates in my life. But as you see here, posted yesterday, I updated you that the Backrooms review dropped. All right. So go check that out on YouTube if you haven't already. As well as you see here, right before I went live 50 minutes ago, I updated you, going live for episode 59. All right. Now let's get back into this case. All right. Here we have Jeffrey Metcalf, Austin Metcalf's father, going on a racist rant against Black people and calls Karmelo Anthony a watermelon felon. All right. a a fried chicken warrior, if you will. All right, so like I said, if he wasn't racist before this, seeing the reaction in the black community and others' reaction in that community towards him and his family in this case, definitely, probably, you could say, added some hatred in his heart.
What'd you do to that boy to make him stab somebody? My God, what kind of mother are you? Hey, Kevin Hayes, you fucking liar. Day after it happened, how many lies did you sit and type up on your keyboard, you big keyboard warrior? You a big tough man. You still live in Baton Rouge? Remember you said you'd come to Frisco, buddy? You're supposed to find me. I told you we could sit down and talk. That's all you do. Talk, Mr. Squeaky Clean. You're the only one in your family without a damn record. I guess that's something to brag about in your culture. You people hang your hat on the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Let me make one up. Y'all can let me make something racist up so y'all can go viral. I got a new name for Mello, okay? Because he was such this little boy y'all were trying to portray. How about Watermelon Felon? How's that one strike you?
Oh,
So don't complain when shit doesn't go your way, when you don't do anything about it. Don't bitch because Trump's president because you didn't vote. You're going to support someone who does something against the law. You're encouraging and saying it's okay because he's a certain color. Oh, you've got more melanin than me. Ooh, so you get more privileges, more entitlement? Because 400 years ago, someone actually sold you to us, and we took you over here and put you to work. And then we had a...
Hey, he doesn't want to say it, right? But it's the Jews, right? I don't want to say it, right? But they're the ones who sold us to the whites here in America. Just putting that out there. Continue, Mr. Jeff.
Civil War to free your ass. And now you want to talk shit? Oh, I've been so oppressed. You couldn't even vote 1960. Look how far you've come. Look at all the free shit we give you. You're not oppressed. You're fucking entitled. Kayla, you drunk bitch.
All right, so Jeff, letting it all out there, and I feel for him, right? I feel some of that hatred and some of that resentment towards the black community at times, and well, not me personally. I have no resentment towards anyone, but I can sympathize or empathize with what he's feeling in this, in this situation. A lot of black people in the black community do have the victim mindset, right? And they are very entitled, right? And they use racism as a anchor for that. That's very true. And he brought up a point about Trump, people who didn't vote and they complain, right? That's also ignorant, very ignorant as well. So he brings up some good points there. So here we have some more. All right. So here we have Jeff Austin Metcalf's dad going off on Karmelo Anthony's parents, accusing them of abandoning him during his sentencing and being grifters, saying black fatigue is real. Right? CPS should come check on those other three you still have. All right. So he's letting it all out on the Metcalf, or the Anthony family here. So let's reload this and give it some volume, shall we? Oh. All right. Can't hear anything. 1 second, folks. All right. We're going to reload that and try it again. We do it live, folks. All right. And W in the chat for the episode so far. I hope you guys are enjoying this breakdown of the Karmelo Anthony case. Let me know in the comments. All right. So let's continue on with Jeff's rant.
Anthony, Kayla, you're cowards. You wouldn't even show up for your son's sentencing. or victim statement impacts. You abandoned your kid. You left him there. I guess he's no more use to you because you can't get any more GoFundMe money or GoSendGo money. You are grifters. You should be ashamed of yourself. You raised that child. And I swear to God, CPS to show them check on those other 3 that you still have. You never once admitted or took accountability. You tried to play victim. The real victim is the one who died, not the one who shoved a knife in his chest. I come to pray with you and show the world we can close the gap of this unbelievable racial divide. And what'd you do? You widen the gap even further. You hire a convicted baby-shaking felon who's only in it for the money, who gives you bad advice, kicks me out of a press conference. Oh, funny, I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, but I left when asked. I didn't stab anyone. And then you proceeded to gaslight me with your convicted felon, quote, advocate, minister? Minister of what? Minister irrelevant? Minister of bullshit? How about minister fuck you?
Oh,
Y'all think I'm a saint? I'm no saint. I'm as human as you. I have emotions. Just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I don't sin, because I don't walk on water and I don't turn into wine.
speak your shit,
And
Jeff.
anybody else can, step up.
Talk your shit.
Don't become kicking rocks in my backyard. Look in your own. The display of adults on the internet. If your children saw how you acted, would you be proud? Or is that what you teach them? Do you teach them that racism is okay? Do you teach them? Do you program your kids to hate, to kill? From day one, I said this was never about race. Please don't make it about race and don't politicize it. And
To be fair, he says to not make it about race, but he kind of did make it about race a little bit there. But that's besides the fact. Talk your shit, Jeff. I hear you, buddy.
what did you do? You chose both. The race card, black fatigue, it's real. I'm sorry.
Oh,
You have embarrassed your own culture and race. Don't get me wrong. We got white people that embarrass the shit out of me too. But you guys, you got a patent on that shit. And the only people that's going to change it are you.
facts.
Don't blame the white person because we can't change it.
That's right.
But you're going to blame the white person for every fucking thing else. We're the bad ones. We're the one that held you down. Guess what? You can do everything in America that I can do.
That's right.
Tell me one thing you can't do that I can't do.
No, he's right.
We all have equal rights. What's it say? All men are created equal.
Under the eyes of God. Correct. I agree.
The First Amendment. Drew Anthony.
All right, there you have it, folks. That is Jeff, Austin Metcalf's father, going on a little bit of a rant there, a bit of a spicy rant for the internet, letting his feelings go, letting his thoughts out. Man, you can't blame him. He's saying what he's saying what's on his heart. And that's the sentiment a lot of white Americans, they carry and what they believe. And I didn't hear too many lies in there. And actually, I didn't hear one. I didn't hear a single lie. All right, so here we have Karmelo Anthony, his mugshot. Looks like he had to cut his hair off there. All right, and his parents. I didn't know that his parents didn't show up to his sentencing. Wow, if that's true, which I guess it is, right? That's pretty shameful to not show up, especially with this case being so nationally known and so much at stake. Your child's future and life. they didn't show up, but they happily took that GoFundMe money, which I believe they raised around up to like 800,000, close to $1 million, and they're probably still receiving donations, right? So. And I believe they actually couldn't use that money for the defense for Karmelo Anthony as well. I believe the judge didn't allow that. So I believe they used a lawyer that was court appointed, and that could have been another huge L, right? They couldn't hire someone more expensive, someone with a better track record, with more wins than losses, a W record, right, with a positive KD. They had to hire, someone at the court appointed, which is usually not always good, right? They just hire somebody, he's like, I'm not getting paid like I should be, I'm gonna just do this job to the bare minimum, so that's another L for Karmelo. Right, when I heard that, I was like, yeah, he might be screwed, and we'll talk about some other ways he might have been screwed from the start here in a little bit as well. And then we have Austin Metcalf here, a nice little school photo, all right, of Austin there. So, is Karmelo Anthony's, or not Karmelo Anthony's, is Austin Metcalf's father racist? Is he racist? Maybe there was already a little bit of racism or bias in his heart towards blacks, all right? But that's human nature. All right. And that's the state of America right now. Everyone carries some level of prejudice and judgment, whether they admit it or not, black or white, Asian or Hispanic. What I will say is that this situation has, without a doubt, radicalized him further and filled his heart with a higher level of hatred than before. So the man, the father, Jeff, said everything but the N-word, right, just now, which tells you a lot about where his heart is right now. And I'm sure his entire family feels the same way. And so do a lot of white Americans who watched this case play out online, right? We all watched it online. But here's a hypothetical worth considering. If the father already carried that level of hatred and resentment in his heart towards blacks, is it possible that Hunter carried some of that same energy when he was pressing Karmelo to leave that tent on that day? Hypothetically, yes. Absolutely possible. Does that justify what happened? No. But it's a question worth asking. Can you really blame them after seeing the reaction from people who celebrated this, made Karmelo a hero, and treated a father's grief like a punchline? That response didn't just hurt a family, it pushed people further apart, further divided Americans. And that's the part nobody in the black community wants to take accountability for, right? Nobody wants to take accountability in the black community. Now, on the jury and the racist claims, one thing I've seen people bring up online is whether the jury selection itself was racist because there were no black jurors. You just saw my dad come in here and state, he's probably not, researching this case like I am, But first thing he said to me just now was, did you hear there was no black jurors on the jury? And I hear that. And I'll even take it a step further. Based on the racial makeup of that county, they absolutely could have evened that jury to better reflect the community. That's a fair criticism. But here's where my logic goes, right? Even if that jury was all black and they stuck strictly to the evidence, Karmelo Anthony may have still been found guilty. And I say this as someone from Texas, right? Someone who's lived in Texas multiple times over several years. I know how Texas operates. They will throw the book at you for a gram of weed down there. So when I found out there were no black jurors on this case, I already knew he was cooked. Now, I did hear there were people of color on that jury, including some Asians and some Muslims. So it wasn't just a room full of white faces making this decision, right? And I don't condone violence to this extreme under any circumstance. Violence should only ever be used as an absolute last resort. So if I'm being fully logical and rational, if I were sitting on that jury after hearing all of the evidence presented, I may have voted guilty as well. Straight up, I might have. At the end of the day, the verdict follows the evidence, not the skin color of who's sitting in that box. And that's the problem. The moment it's black versus white, everybody unites and the facts get thrown out the window. But if it's black versus black violence, crickets. No outrage, no headlines, no jury complaints, crickets. That inconsistency alone tells you this was never really about justice. It was about the optics of who did what to who. And the bottom line in this case, Karmelo Anthony was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison. He has filed an appeal. Most likely outcomes of this appeal will the appeal may be denied and the conviction stands, which is the most common result. A sentence reduction is possible, but less likely. A full conviction overturn is rare and would only happen if a major legal error was made and is proven. So, at the end of the day, both families take a huge L. They take a huge L here. And this just creates more divisiveness in America at a time when we're already being dragged. Rising costs, fighting a foreign war which doesn't benefit us, the Epstein files exposing a predominantly Zionist ruling elite class that doesn't have our best interests, right? It's sad all around. Nobody wins in this case. With that being said, folks, that is my coverage of the Karmelo Anthony case. Y'all let me know down below what y'all thought about it and whether or not you think justice was served. All right. Now let's cover the Rick Chow case. All right. Another spicy, controversial case. And this one hits a little bit different for me because it happened right here in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, where I live and have spent a huge portion of my life. All right. So I got some stuff to pull up regarding this case. Y'all let me know W or L for that coverage in the chat. Right now we have 9 people across multiple platforms watching. Shout out to y'all, right? Shout out to y'all for sticking with me and hopefully enjoying the pod. All right. So let's get into the Rick Chow case. All right. So this case started in 2023 at a Shell gas station on Park Lane Road in Northeast Columbia, near Two Notch Road, about 30 to 40 minutes from where I stay, right near an elementary school. The defendant is Rick Chow, a Chinese-American store owner. The victim is Cyrus Carmack Belton, 14 years old and black. The incident happened in 2023, but the trial didn't happen until 2026. So let's get into what actually happened, the facts surrounding the case. On May 28th, 2023, around 8 p.m., Cyrus enters the store, picks up 4 water bottles from the cooler and puts them all back. The Chows, Rick and his son Andy and his wife Alice, the store owners, confront him anyway. Cyrus leaves and runs. Rick and Andy chase him over 130 yards, longer than a football field. And for a lot of my football players out there, you know, doing wind sprints on, gassers across a 100-yard field, it's a long way to run, right? So Rick shoots Cyrus once in the back with a .45 caliber Glock pistol. The sheriff later confirmed there was zero evidence of shoplifting. All right. However, Cyrus did have an illegal semi-automatic pistol on him, but prosecutors said it hit the ground during the chase and was never pointed at anyone. Right. So the fact that he had this semi-automatic pistol on him, it's a big detail in this case, because the Chow said Cyrus pointed his gun at Andy, which is why Rick fired to protect his son in this case. So, all right. So having this gun is a huge L for Cyrus in this case, and did not help his case whatsoever. Every other witness said they never saw Cyrus point a gun or have anything in his hands. The prosecutor put it plainly: the only people who said Cyrus pointed a gun were the Chows themselves. So it turned into a my word versus your word situation in the courtroom. And we all know a dead man tells no tales, right? So why did it take until 2026 to go to trial? Chow was arrested and charged immediately after the shooting. He was denied bond multiple times and sat in jail the entire time, right? The legal process, pre-trial hearings, motions, evidence, the evidence gathering, took nearly 3 years before it finally went to trial in late May 2026, which was last month, right? So the verdict of this case: after almost a week of trial and 8 hours of deliberation, the jury came back unanimous: not guilty. Chow was released immediately. The sheriff who made the original arrest publicly said he was not happy with the verdict. Now, there was a civil case that was filed against Rick Chow. Cyrus's family had filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit after the shooting. That case was paused during the criminal trial. Now that Chow has been acquitted criminally, the civil case is back on. The family is still pursuing financial accountability through the courts, so this case isn't completely over quite yet. And here we have Rick Chow in the courtroom. Let's actually give it some. Let's start it over and give it some volume and hear what they have to say during the hearing. Oh, pause. Let's give it some volume. I'm struggling. All right, there we go.
Defendant Chi Rick Chow as to the charge of murder, not guilty. Fine number 302, foreperson, June the 1st, 2026. Madam Forelady, this is your verdict and the verdict of the entire jury.
Ms. Menendez,
Thank you.
All right.
Madam Forelady and ladies and gentlemen, the jury.
There you have it. Do you have the decision by the judge in this case? You see a sudden sigh of relief by his lawyer there, as well as what seems to be a face of relief. A sudden overcoming of release on Rick Chow's face, being found innocent in this case, as we expect. But we'll silence this and we'll look at some of the evidence we have and we'll break it down a little bit. All right. So here we have Cyrus entering the store. They're having a watchful eye over him. The Asians watching him very closely. Watch, you touch, you buy, right? You buy, all right? And Asians, they own a lot of grocery stores, and hair stores and salons and things of that nature. And in these a lot of times in these poor neighborhoods, and stricken with crime and whatnot, so they're probably used to thieves, burglaries, and crime in their area, right? So they're watching the young black kid who comes in and comes in with a suspicious backpack, and they're watching them, which they have the right to do. But the fact that he put the water bottles back, they didn't have to chase the kid down. They didn't, but they did, and it led to what it led to unaliving of a young black kid, right? Which is gonna make headlines because the shooter was not black. He was, in this case, Asian, right? So here we have Cyrus grabbing the waters, putting them back, and putting his hands in his pocket. Looks like they're pressing them a bit. And does he leave the store? Looks like he's leaving the store. They're pressing him, and there he goes, leaving the store. And then you have the owners following him, right, and chasing him. I guess he wasn't fast enough. If it was me, right, in my prime, I think my best 40 was a 4.49. Right, I would have been out of there. I would have been gone. 400, my best 455, 51 rather, 51 flat, 100 time in the low or high tens, right? So I would have been out of there, but in this case, he got caught. All right, and he was unlocked, unfortunately. So my final take on the Rick Chow case. The narrative says this was a racist store owner who killed an innocent black kid over water bottles. But the facts tell a more complicated story. Yes, Cyrus stole nothing and was shot in the back while running away. That is wrong regardless of race. But Cyrus was also 14 years old, carrying an illegal semi-automatic pistol at a gas station at 8 p.m. And that didn't appear out of nowhere. That falls on his parents and his environment. Someone failed him long before Rick Chow ever shot him. The same people outraged over this case were silent when black kids were killing other black kids in these same Columbia streets, right down the road from me. That tells me that anger isn't really about Cyrus. It's about who pulled the trigger. Regardless, right is right and wrong is wrong, regardless of race. Chow was wrong for chasing a kid 130 yards and shooting him in the back. And a 14-year-old with an illegal weapon is not the innocent child the narrative is selling. Both things are true. The system isn't what failed Cyrus first. Somebody closer to home did. And until the black community stops defaulting to victimhood and starts demanding accountability from within, this cycle isn't going anywhere. All right. So the system paints it one way. All right. Being an innocent kid, then you have the defense, stating that, he had a weapon and pointed it at him. He say, she say, my word versus your word, and a dead man tells no tales. A classic story that will soon be forgotten in the history books. Sad, unfortunate, and this is where we are. So in my opinion, in both the Rick Chow case and the Karmelo Anthony case, there is a failure of parenting in both cases. At the end of the day, both of these cases share the same root problem, a failure of black parenting. With Karmelo, his parents should have taught him the importance of reacting rationally and not emotionally. No matter what is said to you, no matter how disrespected you feel, you do not resort to fatal violence as a first response. That lesson should have been instilled long before he ever stepped foot at the track meet. With Cyrus, that young man was clearly being raised in an environment that was setting him up to fail. A legal weapon at 14, at a gas station at 8 p.m., in a confrontation that never should have happened. Whether he was stealing or not, the circumstances tell you everything about what his daily life looked like and who was guiding him. Two different cases, two different states, two different situations. The same root problem. When black children aren't being taught accountability, rationality, and discipline, these are the outcomes. All right, these are the outcomes. And instead of looking inward and having that honest conversation, the Black community points fingers outward and plays the victim. And here's the thing that ties both of these cases together at their core: we are separated by race, but united by racism. You see it right here, folks. You see it in both cases. The Black community rallied around Karmelo because the victim was white. People defended Cyrus because the shooter wasn't Black. Where was the outrage when Charlie Kirk got assassinated in 4K in front of everyone by what was supposedly a white kid? Crickets, even though I believe he was set up by his security team and higher power that didn't like what his narrative was beginning to expose, and the public has been fed lies on that whole situation. That's another story. Regardless, crickets. Nobody is asking the harder questions about what led to these kids. What led these kids to those moments in the first place. Until we stop letting race determine whose side we're on and start letting facts and accountability lead, we're just going in circles. All right. So those are my opinions, thoughts, and breakdowns of the Karmelo Anthony case and Rick Chow case, making big headlines and very controversial across the country. You let me know your thoughts and your opinions on these cases. All right. I want to hear from you. Now let's transition a little bit, right, folks? We are hitting the 1 hour, 30-minute mark, but we still have some more to go here on today's episode. So let's move on to some more news that might not surprise you, right? 71 Jewish children. I don't know if they're Jewish, but we know 71 children from an Orthodox Jewish school have been rescued from an underground tunnel connected to a sewer system in New York. Dun, dun, dun. So before I get into this isn't the first time we've heard something like this connected to New York and a Jewish institution. Back in January of 2024, a secret tunnel was discovered underneath the Chabad Lubavitch synagogue. Underneath the Chabad Lubavitch synagogue, the headquarters in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Right, the tunnel was 60 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 5 feet high, running under the synagogue and several surrounding buildings with no permit, just dirt, tools, debris, and bloody mattresses. It came out later that a group of extremist students from the ultra-Orthodox Jewish group had secretly hired migrant workers to dig it as a part of a push to expand the holy site, right? When a cement truck showed up to fill it in, a brawl broke out between the police and the students trying to protect it, and 12 people were arrested. So when you see this new headline, just know this isn't the first time something like this has come up. And that alone should raise some eyebrows, right? Should raise some eyebrows. Very suspicious stuff going on between the Jews and the tunnels, right? And we're not being anti-Semitic, YouTube. We are just reading the facts, all right? Don't blame the messenger, right? Don't shoot the messenger. Blame the message, right? So here we have from Money Scoop. Shavram of Rockland, first responders rescue 71 Monsey schoolgirls from underground tunnels in Nyack. All right, here we have some, seems to be pictures of the tunnel itself and the police talking to some of the Jews, right? So let's read a little bit. Let's get more into it a little bit, shall we? Let's see how long this is before. All right, so we'll read this and then we'll get into the videos. All right, and then we'll give our thoughts a little bit. All right, so a large emergency response was launched Wednesday afternoon after a group of 71 girls from a Monsey school became lost while exploring underground tunnels in Nyack. Sources tell Monsey Scoop that the group began at Memorial Park and followed a creek that eventually led them into an underground section. The children reportedly continued exploring for nearly a half mile, reaching an area near downtown Nyack before becoming confused and unable to find their way back. After authorities were alerted, emergency responders from Chevron of Rockland Orange Town Police, the Nyack Fire Department, Hatsula EMS of Rockland County, and additional agencies from across Ramapo and neighboring communities responded to assist. Rescuers worked to ensure all 71 students and their chaperones were safely accounted for. Several individuals were evaluated at the scene for dehydration and exhaustion after spending an extended period walking through the tunnels, but no serious injuries were reported. Nyack Mayor and Democratic candidate for New York State Senate District 38, Joe Rand, helped coordinate efforts at the scene and later told Monsi's Scoop. All right. We're grateful for the work of the Orangetown Police Department, who responded very quickly once they learned there were young girls inside the culvert. The girls entered from Memorial Park and were exploring, which kids do. They wanted to see what they could find and made it almost a half mile from Memorial Park to the middle of town before becoming alarmed, right? So, off rip, my suspicion is that they weren't just exploring and walking almost half a mile from, their designated path. It seems as though they're being led or drawn into the tunnel. But let's continue on. Someone discovered they were down there and called 911. Police responded along with numerous emergency agencies from Ramapo, New Square, and surrounding communities. We're very grateful they came down to help, and especially grateful to the Orangetown Police Department. Nobody was seriously hurt. Nobody was lost. Everyone has been accounted for, and everything is fine now. We're thankful for the hard work of all the responders and very glad these children are okay. All members of the group were ultimately located and safely escorted out, bringing the incident to a successful conclusion. Officials credited the coordinated efforts of first responders and local leaders for helping ensure a safe outcome for everyone involved. All right, yay! Everyone's safe and sound back in mommy's arms. But this does raise alarms, okay? So this being, in the upper New York area, which is also where the tunnels were found in the previous case we discussed, the tunnel case that happened in 2024, the one with the bloody mattresses. So as we know, there is a high Jewish population in New York and New Jersey. That's where a lot of them live. Actually, I think that's where the highest population of Jews reside. So no surprise that we are seeing a lot of Jewish-related criminal cases and suspicious activity up there, right? Because that's where a lot of them reside. Just as if, blacks, a lot of, you hear a lot of black crime happening in higher populated black areas. It's just, what happens when, a certain demographic, is overly populated with them, and they reside, and it's better. I think diversity is actually a good thing, right? It evens out, the crime for certain groups, right? It disperses it a little bit, and stops things like this from happening. So diversity is a good thing, folks. Never think, as a black man living in a white neighborhood, I can say, it's good to have white people around, and, they're cool with me and I'm cool with them, right? As far as I know, right? They give me the wave. That's all that matters. That's all. Give me a smile, I give you a smile. And we move on with our day. Cordial, we don't have to be best friends, but we can be cordial. We can all get along. So let's get to the report here, shall we? All right. So we have the scene here. Let's help people alive. The Houston area. small hats. They're actually swagged out. I can't lie. The Jew swag be kind of tough sometimes. You got a Jewish paramedic here. So high population of Jews. As we're seeing.
13200 command 1320.
All right, interesting. They look confused, like almost like they're, what happened? I didn't know these tunnels were here. You guys knew. Come on now, come on. You guys all knew the tunnels were there. You know what they're for. So that's where I guess where they get away. I'm not Jewish, so I don't have the 411 on all of their activity and all of the hideouts and where the cookouts are in that community. But as we know, it's a high population in that area, and fishy things have happened up there before. So it's not the first time, and so I guess this is where the kids were walking and got lost, and they ended up in the tunnels. As we know, we know who the media is controlled by, and we know this could have easily been covered up. A lot of the information could have been left out, edited, redacted, so on and so forth. So we can't believe everything we read on this article from moneyscoop.com, right? But we will give our most rational, sound opinion on what we see. And so, yeah, here are the schoolgirls who got, quote, lost under these tunnels. And more evidence pictures. Continue on. So it looks like we just have more pictures and talking, shaking hands. Buddy, buddy, I scratch your back, you scratch my back type of deal. You cover some of this information up and don't let all the details out that we're, leading these little girls under the tunnels. Because we know someone who was Jewish and led little girls to an island, right? We all heard about that story. Jeffrey Epstein, right? And you know what they say? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. All right. So there you have it, for folks. More pictures right there. That's the end of it. That'll conclude our breakdown of that case. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it. All right. And let me know. What do you think? That's it's fishy that these tunnels are popping up out of nowhere, and that little children and are getting lost in them, right? Let me know your thoughts, right? I want to see what you guys have to say. All right, so let's move on a little bit. We have one last news piece today. As I told you, today is going to be more crime and law centered. So we have one more news piece that we'll end off with today. We all remember the Louisiana Mayor Misty Roberts case, right? I covered her a couple episodes ago. She was convicted for having sex with her son's 16-year-old friend during a party at her house. Remember that? She was sentenced to 90 days in jail. 90 days, right? And if that was a man who had sex with his son's or daughter's 16-year-old friend, do we think he would have gotten 90 days? No, he definitely would have got the book thrown at him, right? He would be sitting under the jail. If it was a man mayor who had done this, 90 days just would not have sufficed for the community. But since she is a woman, she gets favor in the court, as we all know. It is what it is, folks. We're not hating. We're just looking at things how they are, and we're laying them, right? So Louisiana mayor gets only 90 days for having drunk sex with a 16-year-old boy. Shout out to Future. Let's go and have drunk sex, right? She was, she's obviously a fan of Future, right? We can definitely say that. So Misty Roberts, the former mayor of DeRidder, Louisiana, was convicted on March 3rd, 2026 of 2 felonies, carnal knowledge of a juvenile and indecent behavior with a juvenile. The charges stemmed from an incident at a 2024 house party for her teenage son where she was accused of having sex, as we know, drunk sex, with a 16-year-old boy. Roberts resigned as mayor after the charges were filed. On June 9th or 10th, 2026. Let's scroll down a little bit here, shall we? So on June 9th or 10th of 2026, Judge Kent, so what was that? What's today? Today is June 13th. So folks, this was a couple days ago, all right? I bring you guys the most updated, up to date, up to speed, news. So y'all go ahead and drop a like for that, right? Giving you guys the facts. The what's what, if you will. On June 9th or 10th of 2026, Judge Kent Savoy sentenced her to 90 days in parish jail, 2 concurrent 5-year suspended prison sentences with 5 years of probation, a $5,000 fine, and a Tier 1 sex offender registration. And honestly, that sex offender registration is probably the biggest hit of this whole thing, right? Now that she has to file for as a sex offender, that's not a good look, right? For jobs, for moving into communities, so on and so forth. It's not a good look. Additional conditions include abstaining from drugs and alcohol, random screenings, therapy, and no contact with the victim. The relatively lenient sentence, citing her clean record and mental health issues, has drawn significant public criticism in DeRidder and online for being too soft, given the potential for much harsher penalties, right? And someone in the comments says, lucky dude. And I will admit, she is not bad looking at all. If you ask me, this is a cougar, right? She's definitely at least, in the as far as cougar goes, she's definitely an 8, right? Nice facial structure. She's definitely been look maxing, watching clavicular, breaking the jaws, nice facial symmetry, and so on and so forth. So, if it's a man, it's he's a creep. If it's a woman, the victim is a lucky dude, all right? But I still don't believe she should have gotten off this easy, right? Of course, she's gonna state mental health issues. If you ask me, all women have mental health issues, right? That's not an excuse, right? This was a man. I hate to be man, woman, boo-hoo, red pill, rager. But it's true, folks. If this was a man claiming mental health issues, nobody would feel sorry for him. They would throw the book at him. He would have, a hefty prison sentence waiting ahead of him. But and his woman, she got away. Basically scot-free, if you ask me. So here we have her. Let's go back. Let's add some volume. So disgraced Louisiana mayor seen arriving at court for sentencing, faces up to 17 years of prison. Okay, so this was before the hearing. All right, so look at that body, girl. Look at that body. I work out. All right, so she is not by any standards bad looking, right? She's pretty hot, right? Pretty hot. Anything to say? She's definitely mogging. All right. Misty Roberts, a mother of 2, is now a Tier 1 registered sex offender. Guilty of indecent behavior with a minor and carnal knowledge of a minor.
Hold up. Is there anything you want to say to the people who like
All right, so you see them trying to press her a little bit, the press trying to get some information out of her. You have any thoughts? What can you say for yourself? She says nothing. Walking with no security. If this was a man, he'd probably have to have a security detail with him if this case was this big. But she's like doop to doop to doo, just walking free in the free world. About to go to court for being a pedophile. No big deal.
if she stays within her parameters, 90 days. So Roberts has got a 5-year sentence that Judge Kent Savoy suspended, but she does have a mandatory 90 days in jail. She also has to pay a $5,000 bond, essentially meaning Roberts can spend 90 days in jail, and then she has to follow certain stipulations, like she has to go to therapy, she has to stay within far away, or there's a stipulation that will be set, of course. However, far away from the victim's family, no contact, as well as regular drug screenings and therapy, as I said before. She was convicted in March of carnal knowledge of a juvenile and indecent behavior with a juvenile, both of which are felonies. Now, Judge Kent Savoy did say in court today that he spent just about an hour deliberating over this and trying to see what other similar cases here in Beauregard Parish, what their outcomes were. He said that, along with the law, guided him to hand this sentence down. Roberts will spend behind bars, and what we learned.
Some of the coverage on the case. Is there more? Nope. So we have a mugshot. So she got off easy, guys. If you ask me, she's basically getting away scot-free in this case. All right. So, yeah, that is what it is. Let's check out some of the comments. As I said, someone said lucky dude, right? Of course, that's probably the general sentiment. She does. I mean, I will admit she is pretty smoking, right? She's definitely an 8 out of 10 as far as cougars go, right? Someone says, if a man did it, hate this world, double standard ASF. I just said, didn't I just say that, folks? Double standard. It's a double standard, right? Why is this happening so much? Yeah, we covered that too. Last episode, we talked about teachers, you know, the epidemic of teachers sleeping with their students, right? Go check that episode out if you haven't already. But there's a lot of psychology behind that. You know, a lot of times these women, they're, you know, they get the power, you know, they're power hungry over these young boys, you know. Perhaps they don't get it in their own sex life, right? Perhaps they're the you know, the submissive with their husband, or maybe they're the dominant, and maybe they meet a young kid who is dominant when their husband is submissive, or the opposite. They meet a young kid who is, you know, easily, you know, seduced, and, you know, they take advantage of them, and you know, they become the dominant in that situation, right? It's all about power at the end of the day. It's all about power. You know, 48 Laws of Power. Robert Greene. Shout out to Robert Greene. All right, folks. So with that being said, that is our episode. I hope you guys enjoyed today's topics, news coverage. A little bit of a different episode. I like to mix it up. As always, the StormCast is everywhere you find podcasts. So subscribe on YouTube, drop a 5-star review on Spotify, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And Rumble. By the way, we also have a Rumble. All links are down in the description below. Support the show on Patreon. Link in the description. Drop your thoughts on today's topics in the comments. Were they good or bad? Did they make you feel happy or sad? How was my coverage on them? How can I get better? How can I improve? What would you guys like to hear from me? I want to know. I love to hear from y'all. And I want to hear from you. All right. So thank you for tuning in. And stay locked in for the next episode, all right? And before we leave, I actually want to leave you guys with a quote of the day. You know, we can't end this bad boy off without a nice little quote, something inspiring for you to take away from this episode. If you didn't get anything from this episode, all right, if I didn't teach you anything, if I didn't expose any truths, any hard truths of reality, I'm going to leave you off with a quote that you should be able to take some inspiration from, and it should motivate you a little bit. Okay, so this is a quote from the Stoics. All right, it goes, "The desire to be loved is the last illusion. Give it up and you will be free." So what does this mean? Most people think they want money or success or status. The Stoics believed something deeper was often hiding underneath: the desire to be approved, to be admired, to be respected, to be understood, to be validated, to be chosen, to be loved. And because of this, entire lives become performances. People stop asking, is this true? And they start asking, will they like me if I do this? Right? A person changes how they speak, what they believe, what they pursue, what they tolerate, what they become, all to secure affection from people who are often just as lost as they are, people they don't even know most times. The Stoics saw this as one of the most sophisticated forms of slavery because the chains are invisible. Marcus Aurelius, the famous Stoic philosopher, wrote, "The moment you are pleased by praise or offended by an insult, you are still a slave." Why? Because another person has just gained authority over your emotional state. We see it in the Karmelo case, right? He reacted emotionally. In that case, he's a slave to his emotions, a slave to his thoughts, right? To his behavior, to his for his instinct to the ego, to feed his ego. So think about that. A stranger says something flattering, your mood rises. A stranger says something insulting, your mood falls. Who is in control, you or them? The Stoics believed most people never become themselves. They become reflections, mirrors, shapeshifters, changing form depending on who is watching. This is why praise can be more dangerous than criticism. Criticism attacks you, praise seduces you. It quietly teaches the mind to depend on external approval for its sense of worth. And eventually, something tragic happens. The person no longer knows what they genuinely value, only what receives applause. Marcus Aurelius ruled the largest empire on earth. Yet he consistently reminded himself the people praising him today would be dead soon, and so would he. So why build an identity on the opinions of ghosts? That's deep. The Stoics believed freedom begins at a terrifying point. The moment a person becomes willing to lose admiration in exchange for truth, to lose approval in exchange for authenticity, right? To lose applause in exchange for self-respect. That's true freedom. One of the deepest realms within the Stoics Codex is attachment. Not attachment to possessions, not attachment to people, attachment to validation. The craving to be liked, the need to be understood, the hunger for approval. If nobody could praise you, admire you, validate you, or even notice you, would you still choose the life you're living? All right, and that represents a lot of what we see in society today on social media, that desire, that craving for attention and approval. You see it in Instagram pictures, you see it on, Twitter, Facebook, people selling out for likes, women on OnlyFans, selling their pictures of themselves nude all over the internet. I respect the hustle, but it is devaluing, right? In the chase for, a lot of times isn't even money. A lot of times it's for approval, right? From people, and the need to be recognized, right? And so, that helps me explain a lot about myself. I would consider myself a Stoic individual because firstly, I do not care about how many people are watching my live streams, how many people are commenting in my chat, how many people view my videos, attention in person, compliments, none of that. In fact, I respect a negative or a when someone tells me the truth or what they notice about me, which may seem harsh or rude, but it's the truth. Someone tells me, "Hey, man, you got a booger in your nose," right? You can respect that person, right? Rather than someone telling you you're beautiful and not acknowledging the fact that you have, something on your face that may not be flattering, or and trying to keep your ego satisfied, right? We see it all over the internet. We see it everywhere. And, you may be that person that, realizes you crave attention. You crave likes and comments on your posts. And if that's you, just take a second to reevaluate, right? What's really important. your value and what you believe about yourself or what others believe about you. And with that being said, folks, today's episode has been, I believe, one of my best breakdowns and episodes. Y'all let me know your thoughts, though. And we'll see you in the next episode, folks. I love you so much. Stay beautiful, stay blessed. And that's it for today. See you in the next one.